Welcome to your first video for Unit 2, Intro to Quadratics. Make sure you are taking notes in your new notebook. Topic: Quadratic graphs and their key parts. I can statement: identify key parts of quadratic functions from their graphs. Vocabulary: I highly encourage you to draw a quick sketch of this in your vocab notes. It'll help you remember all the parts. Pause the video and do so now. Quadratic function is a function that has a value of x squared in it. A parabola is the graph of a quadratic function. The graphs are going to be U-shaped. They can either be like a U-shape going up or a U-shape going down. Vertex is either the high or the lowest point on the parabola. If you look at the example, this vertex is the lowest point. So how we're going to write it as an ordered pair. Ordered pairs are x, y. So you write the x value. It's over to the right 2. But then it's down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2, negative 5. The axis of symmetry is the line that cuts the parabola in half, but it's half symmetrically, meaning even on both sides. You can see the axis of symmetry is this dotted line that's going down. Since it's a line, we're going to write it as a line. X equals, well, it's going over where x equals 2. Extrema is saying if the parabola has either a maximum point or a minimum point. That is told by the vertex. So if you go to the vertex, since it's a low point, we call this a minimum. If a parabola had gone the other way, that would have been a maximum. And x and y intercepts are words you're used to. X-intercept is where it crosses x-axis. Y-intercept where it crosses y-axis. Again, we're going to write these as ordered pairs. Now, in this case, I have two x-intercepts. It crosses it twice. So one of my x-intercepts is at negative 1, 0. The other x-intercept is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. The y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis is at 0, negative 1, 2, 3. So beyond knowing all the words, we need to know how to write them. Example 1. We're going to start by identifying the vertex, axis symmetry, and the extrema from these two graphs. Copy these graphs in your notes. You have one graph provided for you, so you can either sketch a second graph, or if you turn the page, you have a sheet of extra graphs on that page as well. Alright, let's start with the vertex. Vertex is that high or low point. In this case, it's a low point right down here. And we're going to write it as an ordered pair. X first, negative 2, then y, 1. Axis of symmetry. You can abbreviate symmetry to SYM. You need to make sure you write it as a line. X equals. It's the invisible line that if I drew, it would cut the parabola in half. If you note, it will go through the vertex. So it's going to cut the parabola in half at x equals negative 2. The extrema is describing if the graph has either a maximum or minimum point. Since this parabola has a low point where the vertex was, we call it a minimum. Try the second graph on your own. Pause the video and then check your answers. Alright, let's check your answers. Vertex. Right up there, the high point. The ordered pair would be negative 4, 4. Axis of symmetry. it's going to be x equals, well, if I drew a line down here, I'd cut it in half, so you know it goes through the vertex. X equals -4. And the last extrema, since it's going to a high point, we call this a maximum. Example 2, we're going to go over x and y intercepts. I have 3 examples here because you have 3 options for how many x-intercepts. You can have a parabola that crosses the x-axis twice, 1 time, or never crosses the x-axis. So always make sure that you're recording all options of x-intercepts. So in the first example, I have 2 x-intercepts. The first one is at -2, 0. The second one is at 3, 0. On the next example, my x-intercept is at -1, 0. And the last one, since I don't have an x-intercept, you can either write none or NA. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, right there for this first example, and that is at 0, -6. On the second example, crosses at 0, 2, almost made a mistake there. And the last one, it crosses at 0, -2. Example 3, we're going to identify all the parts we've covered. So let's start with the vertex. It's the high or low point. In this case, it's a low point right there, and the ordered pair for that would be -2, 6. Next, let's do the axis of symmetry. It's that invisible line that I can draw to cut my parabola in half. It goes through the vertex. So this example, my axis of symmetry is x equals -2. The extrema is deciding if it's a maximum or minimum. Since the parabola has a low point, we say that's a minimum. Now we need to do both the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. If I look, my parabola does not cross the x-axis, so I have no x-intercepts. And it does cross the y-axis, and it looks like it's just a little bit above 7, so we are going to write 0, 7.3. Last example. Can you draw this parabola on your notes and see if you can name all the key parts by yourself? Pause the video and try this, then watch to see if you got all the same answers as me. So let's see. For the vertex, did you write down 5, 1? For the axis of symmetry, did you draw an invisible line going halfway through the parabola and list it as x equals 5? The extrema, since the vertex is a high point, we say this is a maximum. And for the x and y intercepts, there are 2 x-intercepts, crosses twice. So the first one we can write that as 4, 0, and the second one at 6, 0. Y-intercept, we can't see it on this graph. Now, does not mean it doesn't exist, because if I continued my parabola, it would keep going down and out, and we know it would eventually cross the y-axis, but since we don't know it, we're just going to leave it blank. Lesson recap. Can you identify the vertex, which is the high or low point, written as an ordered pair, the axis of symmetry, the line that cuts the parabola in half, writing it as x equals a number, the extrema, either deciding if it's a maximum or minimum point, and the x and y intercepts, listing them correctly as ordered pairs and the correct number of each one. If not, come in for help or check out additional resources.